Welcome to the race report from the Tour de Brisbane. We've got 3 stages in this race report and I'll try and get through them super quickly because I got no content to share to overlap my voice with images, so you just got to look at me. The lead up wasn't great. I'd just come back from breaking my toe. I dropped the toe bar on it, crushed the bone, and spent 2 weeks in a moon boot, 1 week in a sandal, and then 1 week riding on top of my shoe, 1 week riding with my foot in my shoe but not strapped up, and then I did 1 session with my shoe strapped up in the lead up to the race. So I wasn't well prepared, and prior preparation prevents piss poor performance. So I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I was really excited to be able to push myself. My toe was healed enough to ride strong. The long weekend started with the individual time trial on Thursday. My bike, which I actually got hooked up with from Chris, one of my mates, and benefits of Instagram, we get to keep in touch with people who are not around the area. He saw that I'm still waiting for my bike from the bike crash. The insurance company refuses to get back to me, ignores me, and I'm still waiting for a bike. So he hooked me up with his. Jack set me up on the bike, made sure it fitted really well. We did this whole hour of setting the bike up. It was great. I felt so aero. I had like a nice lean on the TT bars, and unfortunately in UCI rules that's illegal. Thankfully triathlon don't check that. Well, Ironman or long course don't anyway, so you can have it as aggressive setup as you like and they're sweet, just ride strong, which I'm all for. Unfortunately, I get on the race start line 15 minutes before, do the bike check, and they're like, nah bro, your TT bars are angled at too much of an angle, they need to be flatter. So I was at 5 degrees, they need to be at 0. So I was like, yes, sweet, you got any tools? I got nothing on me, I rode here. So I biked my van at Burbank and rode in as my warm-up ride. I should have had a longer warm-up ride. I grabbed an Allen key, I loosened the headset, dropped the handlebars down to 0 degrees, tightened it back up, checked it again, and then my TT bars were too long this time because they were up like this and they were good length, but then being longer they were further out. So I had to bring them back, and then with 30 seconds to go, the race starting person goes, Travis Coleman. I was like, yep, that's me, as I'm getting someone to put the bib number on my back. And I was like, bro, just put like 1 pin, 2 pins in, it's sweet, let me go. And he goes, oh, finish it off. And I was like, dude, I got 30 seconds. So it was quite fitting in terms of triathlon feel that it was like T1. So I quickly got my number pinned on my back by this guy that was taking forever, ran over, grabbed my helmet from the side of the road, picked up my bike, ran over to the start pen with 10 seconds to go, had to stand still, stood there, took off, and you went up this climb for maybe 400-500 meters to start the race. It was a really hilly TT, 17 kilometers with 400 meters elevation. I get nearly 3/4 of the way up this hill and my handlebars fall forward on me. I didn't tighten them enough because I didn't have a torque wrench, I just had an Allen key and I didn't want to round out the nuts and bolts. So that's an issue when your handlebars are falling all over the place. Thankfully they were tight enough you had to give it some force, like being out of the saddle or hitting a bump. I got to the top of the hill, unclipped, ripped them back up, and they were quite aggressive. I was riding basically like that on the bike. Not great, not comfortable, couldn't put proper watts down. And I'm coming down this hill into a hard left at the bottom of the roundabout, and by putting brake force on is enough to drop them. So I'm dropping with my TT bars either side of the wheel like so, trying to descend and take this corner. Thankfully they didn't pull me off the course somehow. I don't know how I didn't get pulled off the course with this much. It was danger to myself and anyone else. It's crazy. I managed to, after turning the corner, I would grab the TT bars and rip them back up, and then I'd ride like that. And I learned that I couldn't hold on to the brakes and I couldn't hold on at all. So what I was doing was, while I was riding, I had to pull the bars back to me, sit back on the seat, which made my position really uncomfortable and I wasn't able to get much power out. And it was a really hilly course. So I ended up climbing like that, riding like that, and descending like that. And if I needed to brake, I just hoped that I did it right. I slowed down quite a bit. So on the downhills, I wouldn't pedal, I'd just freewheel. I only had, there was 3-4 corners in it. Thankfully, it wasn't too technical, otherwise I would have had to pull out. But I managed to hit 70k an hour while holding onto the top tube of my bike with my thighs, holding the handlebars back like this, and just praying that I didn't fall off or hit any bumps on this old country road that's full of bumps. Somehow I did it right. I finished, I think I averaged maybe 270 watts. I was aiming for above 300. I was like, yeah, new FTP score, so excited. TLR hooked me up with a deep dish front and a disc at the back, so the bike looked sick, it felt so fast until I cooked it and didn't tighten it up. I managed to pull a Bradbury and win my age group of 25 to 29 years in an individual time trial because the other guys didn't start. And I almost didn't finish, so we would have had no one finish that age group if I didn't somehow miraculously finish. On to the next day, on Friday, it was the Crit, King Street Criterium. After the time trial, I felt maybe it was a warm-up ride. It almost felt like a waste of time. I also forgot to say that I threw up on the TT about 5 to 8 kilometers into the race, partially because I had a bean bowl 2 hours before the race, a coffee and a Cliff Bar 1 hour before the race. My tri-suit is super tight because I haven't been training much and I've got some good padding and insulation on me at the moment, plus the food, plus the stress and the anxiety of the whole situation and the heart rate skyrocketing. I just vomited all over my leg and spent the rest of the day feeling quite sick. Then I get to the Crit. I felt underperformed from the ITT, that I was really ready to just have a really good Crit race and send it. We parked just out of town, slept in the van, had a quick nap before the race, and then rode in maybe like 2 kilometers, did a couple laps of the course, warmed up, not very much and definitely not enough. All through, we do like an easy lap, like a rolling start, and then we stop and then we start again. Unfortunately, I had no idea what I was in for. The other guys must have. And on the rolling start, they all sprint and take off to the start to get on the front of the start line. Major key in about a 700 meter loop with 12 turns or whatever it was. It's a crazy course. Loved the course, but crazy course. Then I'm back. I'm the last person to get to the start line. Then as we start, I don't clip in straight away. I take 2 attempts to clip in. And I don't bother getting out of the saddle to sprint to the bunch because it comes to this angled turn back in on itself that's hectic, up a bump. And I was like, I'm not sprinting out of the saddle to try and take this corner. Everyone's got disc brakes, I've just got rims so I don't brake as well. It's crazy. So then I just like tempoed it thinking it was going to be like a normal clubby Crit where usually we just roll and build into it. Unfortunately it was sprint from the start and I just missed the bunch and figured I'd just work my way back on. I actually had so much fun because it was, so the start was down a hill, hard left in on itself, 90-degree left, over a quick bump, a 90-degree right, up a hill, U-turn, down the hill, into the nice rolling left, and that's the finish line. Super fun. My data doesn't look impressive at all, but it was so hard. Coming out of the corners were between 600 to 800 watts. And I only averaged like 270 watt for 20 minutes because obviously not pedaling through corners or anything like that. And the downhill, I'm not too sure. But that was hard. I had like heartburn going on. And 2 guys broke away from the main pack and ended up almost catching me. So I got red flagged and pulled out of the race as a safety for them, not to get in their way. And I was stoked. It was 20 minutes into the 30-minute Crit. So it was 30 minutes plus 2 laps. I got pulled out after 20 minutes. I was like, yeah, cheers, thanks, I'm done. I'm off the back of the pack. I'm not contesting anything. I was just having basically my individual time trial. So painful, but so good. That was that race. We ended up sleeping at my mate Jake's place in the van. So our first overnight sleep in the van, which is quite cool. Hung out with all our friends on Saturday. Simone and Dulcie came up. We just had mad chats, mad food. It was really, really good time just hanging out with people, having a relaxing Saturday before Sunday's Grand Fondo. Jake's place, Saturday night to go sleep nice and close to town. We found a place that's got a markets on, so we slept near the markets to make it look like we were there, and that way we had people around us because there was people from the markets sleeping there overnight that work at the market. And it was only about 3 kilometers from the race start for the Grand Fondo. We also didn't prepare enough in terms of how cold it would get. We forgot that it's autumn and that Queensland gets cold. So we only had a sheet and we didn't bring any winter clothes. And I don't know what temperature it got down to, but it was freezing cold from 4 a.m. till 5 a.m. Michaela and I were both curled up in a ball, trying not to get hypothermia. I ended up doing a little bit of breath work to get myself back to sleep, and not a good start. Woke up shivering, And then we also knew that Macca's is open 24/7 and they sell coffee and they have soy milk. So we were sorted. We drove over to Macca's. They have toilets, key for me, coffee for Michaela. I go in, do a couple laps going in and out of the toilet, get Michaela's nice hot coffee and just breathe it in as I walk over to hand her energy go-go juice. And then we roll back to where we camped, right into the race. Didn't really warm up, but I figured 110k will warm up, it'll be fine. I had two Cliff drink bottles this big. I should have had my bigger bottles, but I didn't. I figured I wouldn't need them. It wasn't going to be a hot day, and I was just going to sit in the pack and not put too much effort out. Just a big bunchie. Really hectic, really dangerous, wild course. Grand Fondos are crazy. It's basically a crit, but for several hours. We start, I don't know Brisbane at all, but we started in the city and we spent 20k's going around all these loopy bits to get out of the city. And at maybe 15k's in, someone crashed because the tape going along the side fence blew into his handlebars, pulled him over and knocked him over. And I was just hanging on to the back of the pack at this stage. And unfortunately, everyone in front of him took off, the main pack went, and me and a couple others, maybe 10 at most, were dropped, or more than 10 were dropped, but maybe 10 of us put the effort in to join back up. We ended up getting straight onto the highway after this, and that helped because then I could TT back on. I was with another couple guys, we were trying to get turns going. I was pulling a massive turn because I was like, I want this pack, they don't want it, I'll encourage them. So I pulled a big turn, tried to flick my elbow for someone to come through, no one would come through. So I spent 45 minutes TTing onto the back of a 40-man bunch. Painful, so painful. Again, my data doesn't look good. I was expecting like 300 watts for the whole ride, but it doesn't look impressive at all. I think I averaged 44k an hour for the 110. We're going down to the bus tunnels, and when we're going into the tunnels, my Garmin wasn't recording any data, so I think that's another reason why my data doesn't look great, because I don't have any. But it was really fun, really good. Me and another guy caught a pack of 3, then we rolled around as a pack of 5, and then a pack of 5 caught our pack of 5, and then we ended up just getting onto the back of the bunch as we hit the U-turn to go onto the highway again. By this stage, I think we were maybe 40k's into the ride. I'd already gone through 1 drink bottle, and the numbers weren't adding up well because I'm not a camel. I need to drink a lot of water. I had my trail brew in there as my electrolyte as well, so I didn't have to consume too much. And food, nutrition-wise, was a gel every 20 kilometers. So Cliff Raspberry, Cliff Chocolate, Cliff Citrus, and Cliff Mocha. And I think I did an espresso as well. But every 20 kilometers I had gel, just to get me through the race, enough sugar and energy. I had enough carbs in the drink. I just didn't have enough water. I had the cold shivers the night before. Ended up running out of water at 80k, hanging onto the back of the bunch, cramping, but having a great time. We hit Cootha at 90k, and I cramp up bad, and I can't surge up the hill. What the game plan was to sit in the pack and attack the hill, try and get a good gap on the descend, because I'd never descended it before, so I thought it'd be slower, and then hang on for the technical sprint finish at the end. That didn't work. As soon as we hit Cootha, I just lapped my Garmin. I was like, that's it, I'm out of this race. Cramping up, left leg hamstrings gone, pedaling with my right leg, overtaking some of the guys up the hill, so that was quite of an ego boost. And it's a really nice hill. I like climbing the back side of that Cootha climb. And it's like a rolly bit on the top, and then a really nice fun descend where you didn't have to use your brakes at all. And then the top of the hill was 100 kilometre mark, roughly, before we started descending back down. There was an aid station up top where I was like, all right, I'm going to grab water. I'm out of the race anyway. I just need some water to finish. And then mentally I was like, nah, man, you got like 10k to go. You don't need water. Just push through. We descend down and we go onto a highway for a bit and come back in. It was a time trial. And then a couple of the guys who I overtook up the hill caught me on the highway bit, working together. I worked with them. And then one guy just surged all of a sudden. I guess it's a race. I thought we were just going to roll together as a bunch to all survive to the finish. And he split the pack. 2 guys went with him, and the 5 of us just all dropped off and did our own race from there. Rolled into the finish, and that was that. It was a really fun, hard weekend of racing. The crit and the Fondo were my favourite parts. I would have loved to have a good TT, but I didn't, unfortunately. And then Michaela did really well too. She smashed it in right on 4 hours, including a toilet break at one of the rest stops. So I was so proud of her. I was more stoked on her having a solid race. I think she averaged like 33 for 110 Ks.
I was just stoked to see that she had a good time. She was enjoying it. We got to pass each other once on the highway, and I was like, ah! In the middle of the bunch. But yeah, it was a good weekend away, good way to test the van. And we're off now again in a couple of hours to go on a van trip down to Port Macquarie over the Easter long weekend. Really excited for that, and excited for more racing coming up. My next race is going to be, I think, 30-kilometre race at the end of the month. Running race. Running wise, I've run 4 kilometres as my longest run coming back from my toe. The longest run I'll do leading into the race is probably only an hour and a half. I'm only slowly stepping it up slowly so I don't injure and aggravate myself any much. I know I've got the fitness to survive 30Ks. I don't think I have the speed and strength to race for 30Ks, but I'm going to have a crack. I'm just going to see how it goes. And I'll see you guys after that one, or you'll see a van vlog. I'm not sure if we'll record anything from our van holiday, but we're surfing, having a good time, hanging out with Michaela's family down south. Peace.